Giv'ah, the initial testimony by that Ephraim Jew who's a Levi was really that the town of Giv'ah is responsible for the atrocity. Yet it's clear that Israel summons together. We see 3 times the unity, that they're like Ish Echad, where we've never seen that term being used all of Sefer Shoftim, hundreds of years of Tanakhic history. Yet it seems that they're being summoned to do something terrible. It's clear to anyone that's observing that they're summoning, getting ready to go to war. But really, who is ready to go to war first? It seems when you review again chapter 20 and you look at Pasuk 14, Vayasvu b'nei Benyamin min ha'arim ha'givata latzeit lamilchama im b'nei Yisrael. I don't know if you remember, but what led to the what was the closing of the Tiran Straits? Was that the Yom Kippur War, or that was the Yom Kippur War? The closing of was the 6-day war, the closing of the Tiran Straits by Egypt.
Yom Kippur War was a surprise.
You're right. Thank you. So there are things that are called a declaration of war. Here, Israel, every tribe, you better be here. If not, oy vavoy, and everyone conglomerates together. We'll see regarding the Jews in the Giladi Mountains later on today, perhaps if not tomorrow. They don't join, but they're ready to go. But we don't see a declaration of war. When they go to Binyamin and they say, hand them over. In chapter 13, in verse 13, Tenuet anashim b'nei Vilial asher b'giva. They ask specifically to hand over those lawless culprits that did the terrible things to that woman that raping her and causing her death indirectly. And here we see a very interesting response. V'lo avu v'nei Binyamin lishmoa. Why not? I want this to be more sharpened in our understanding. The reaction of the men of Binyamin. Why are they stubborn? Obviously, they don't agree that this woman was raped and now she died. They feel probably terrible as well, although we don't see or hear regret. We don't see or hear a vidoy, a confession. So let's ask ourselves, why? And they know. Why are they saying no? Why don't they hand them over? It says, Lo avu b'nei Binyamin lishmoa b'kol hachem b'nei Yisrael. Now, number one, it could be that they have their own tribal pride. Maybe it should be the justice system of the tribe of Binyamin and not others. That could be one answer. Another answer, some write, I saw by one of my rabbis, Rav Eli Mali, he writes that the people of Binyamin are sensing that Israel is blaming all of, not just the Bnei Bilial, the culprits, but maybe the entire town, or maybe all the tribe of Binyamin. Meaning that they're maybe as if they're pointing a finger at all of the town of Giv'ah. Number 3, and this is very important to remember, there is no tribal unity in these hundreds of years. If, what you could say, there's tribal tension. Do you remember the war led by that great woman, courageous prophet, what's her name? Devorah. When she's fighting against the enemy of Sisera, coming from the north, and she's hoping that tribes will come from all over the place, most of the tribes sat home. They played chess. I don't know what they played, but they didn't come to her helping. When she sings the song of praise, Shirat Vorah, the song of praise, she's very to the point, ridiculing those tribes that are not coming. We see during the entire course of the book of Shoftim, let's say the time of Shimshon. Shimshon was a very mighty, courageous man from the tribe of Dan. When he tried to combat economically the Plishtim by causing economic havoc in those areas, and the Plishtim woke up and said, we got to stop this guy, who was willing to hand him over? Yehuda, of all tribes. Do you know what it means to be Moser, to hand over a fellow Jew to the enemy? What? It's one of the worst things. Jews over the centuries would be very quiet. I didn't see anything. I didn't know anything. To hand over a fellow Jew is a very, very difficult thing. What do we notice? These are just a few examples of many, but we don't have the time because Netanya wants us to get going further. This is a time of economic and tribal division. We're living in a time of tribal division and tribal tension. No unity whatsoever. What did I say wrong? Okay, I'm just joking. So he has a chavruta. You like that? We planned that out. Say that. And therefore, I want you to notice, after they refuse and say, no, we're not handing them over, what do the people of Binyamin do? Pasuk 14, do you see it inside yourself? Chapter 20, Pasuk Yudalet. Vayasvu b'nei Binyamin min ha'arim ha'givata. They're the ones that, from the area of all the cities of Benjamin, they start collecting together where? To Givah. They're defending their fellow Jews. Latzeit lamilchama b'nei Yisrael. Now, they're very aware. What are their chances? What are we told in Pasuk 17? After Bnei Binyamin formulate together to go to war for the purpose of war, what do the tribes of Israel do in verse 17? They get ready for war. In other words, who is initiating a declaration of war, setting up people to get ready to go to war? It's Binyamin first. Now, who's opposing them? All the tribes. How many are enumerated in the army of Bnei Yisrael? 400,000. What are they, stupid? Bnei Binyamin stupid to go to war? Maybe you want to say they didn't know how many people are coming they're going up against. But if you're betting money, 20, how many did you say? 26,000 versus 400,000. You don't have a chance. It sounds ridiculous. Why are Bnei Binyamin going to war? So we brought a few reasons, but now when you face up facts, 400,000 fellow Jews? Okay, so we learned this last week, once and twice. Who goes to the Kohen Gadol? Who goes to the Kohen Gadol to ask a national question? The tribes of Israel. And they go and ask the way they ask, and they're told who should go out first? Yehuda. And we see in the first battle, the tribes of Israel lose the war terribly. And in the second battle, as well, they lose the war. Everyone's asking the question, well, what happened? Why did they lose the war? Didn't they ask? So we began to answer using the Malbim's understanding, one of the later commentators, that when they proposed the question to the high priest, they asked the wrong way. What did they ask in verse 18? What were the key words? Mi ya'aleh lanu batchila lamilchama. Do you see that in verse 18, Yudchet? Mi ya'aleh lanu batchila lamilchama. Who should lead us? Who should be the raiding unit? Okay? The invading unit. Who should go first? The Malbim explains a much more basic, moral question should have been asked. And that question should have been what? Should we go? Should we go up against our own brothers? Does this deserve it? Now, we already talked about the fact that in a court of law and order, of the Beit in the court of Israel, there's a lack of good testimony. We don't have two witnesses. We don't have precise testimony. Really, it's not there. You want to punish unlawfully? So ask permission from God. So they did not ask. All God's answer through the Kohen Gadol is Yehuda batchila, but didn't say yes, he should go up. Yehuda is the strongest unit. Yehuda's tribe is very strong. But they didn't ask, should we go to war? They didn't ask, shall we be successful in war? Why? The Malbim writes the following. Ki batchu al gvuratam ve'al zroam zroa basar. They relied on their own physical, human power. And you know what? If you're using human power, probably which unit of the tribes is probably the strongest? Yehuda batchila. But God didn't say through the Kohen Gadol, Yehuda ya'aleh. Yehuda should go up and invade. Certainly God didn't say that you're going to be successful. So they didn't ask the right way. They're relying on their own physical power, and they're leading themselves to devastation. How many die from the tribes of Israel? How many die in the first invasion? 22,000. And then comes a second time. And in a second time, what do they ask? Huh?
Should we go again?
Okay. Hausif lageshet milchama. You see in verse 23. The point is this. They already situated their forces in verse 22. After the first fall, look at verse 22. They were even stronger in their volition, in their convictions, and they added more units. They ordered more gedudim, more chativot, in the same place that they invaded by Yom HaRishon. Instead, they should have gone what? Gone to the Kohen Gadol in the town of Shiloh, and they should have asked the proper way. Okay? Should we all go up to war at all? But they don't ask it. And therefore, God says, Alu Elav, go up. He doesn't say, I'm in favor of going to war. You're going to be successful in going to war. You know what Chazal say? Chazal say a very interesting expression, an educational expression. If I'm doing the wrong things, does Hashem allow me to do the wrong things? Of course He does. God doesn't tie our hands. Chazal say the following, it's coming into my mind right now. In the direction a person wants to go in, he's led in that direction. God's going to take away any stumbling blocks. God's going to take away any landmines. God will take. You want to go in that wrong direction? A big isn't. To your health. You want to do the wrong things? Right now, Israel is mad. Israel is not looking to investigate properly. Israel is not looking to really have a proper court case. They're taking the law into their own hands, and they're going to ask the Kohen, but in the wrong way. They forgot, how do you approach a Kohen Gadol to ask in the Urim v'Tumim? So you know what God says? This is what you want to do. It's your problem. God's not going to take away the freedom of choice in these crucial matters. And again, it's at a time of division. The tribes are divided. There is not love and unity. Here, they unified together for the first time to go against a regular tribe. But 11 tribes are unified. We've never seen that at all through Sefer Shoftim. What happens before the third invasion? What happens? How many died, by the way, in the second invasion? 18,000. A sum total of how many fellow Jews are being killed? 40,000 Jews of all these tribes. Devastating. Now, let's see what happens for the third time. Pasuk Kafva, verse 26. Vayalu kol bnei Yisrael v'chol ha'am vayavo Beit El. Beit El, we explained last week, is the town of Shiloh. Why is it called Beit El? Meaning it's the sanctuary, the Mishkan, the tabernacle in Shiloh. Notice though the unity. It says all of Israel. They're going away from the war zone. He wants a blue chair. And now we know. The Rav Yifado hevet tzeva kachol. But we thought that your blue shorts goes very well with the blue chair. Okay. Say that. אבל פשוט זה טעם את הצבע של המכנסיים שלו. You like that, don't you? Gentlemen, what happens this day after the second collision? ויפקו, וישבו שם לפני השם, ויצומו ביום ההוא עד הערב, ויעלו עולות ושלמים לפני השם. What is happening now that didn't happen?
You're crying out to Hashem instead of telling our prophet.
I believe in Hashem and not in quote.
You're all telling me details. I'm looking for something inclusive. What are they doing now?
Turning to Hashem.
They're in a process of tshuva, a process of repentance. Number one, it's all of Bnei Yisrael are shifting and moving up to Shiloh. Number two, they're crying. Number three, they're not just taking a tissue and wiping their eyes and going away. Vayeshvu sham, they're dwelling there. They're staying there for the entire day. Number four, vayatzumu, no eating, no drinking. They're fasting. They're staying away. Number five, they're bringing sacrifices. Instead of using their monies to buy weapons and use it against fellow Jews and ask the wrong way, they're doing a process of submission. They're bringing sacrifices. What type of sacrifices can they bring now in the town of Shiloh? What type of korbanot? Obligatory korbanot? What korban? Oh, maybe a sin offering, maybe volunteer offerings to get closer to God. What they're doing right now is they want to bring a connection between God and they. Right now it seems as if God's on vacation. He's not helping us out because we're not helping us out. And we have to ask the question, is the Shekhinah, the divine presence, in favor? Is God playing favorites here? Is he showing on behalf of the tribe of Benjamin that they should overcome?
Shekhinah is probably pretty split.
What do you mean pretty split?
I learned that in the Zohar. It says that,
Huh?
that the Shekhinah is Am Yisrael.
It reveals itself through Am Yisrael. But I want to raise...
The Zohar that would be pretty...
Right. You're not 40 years old. Don't start learning Zohar.
Somebody else taught me.
Now I understand everything. Okay. Gentlemen, what's happening here is something devastating. Who is asking to connect to the divine presence? The tribes of Israel. By being there, by fasting and crying and bringing korbanot. They're dealing with tshuva. They're not going to, and we're going to see the way they're approaching God, not like two times before. Look at now verse 27, Kav Zayin with me. Vayishalu v'nei Yisrael b'Hashem, v'sham Aron berita Elohim bayamim ahem. And another pasuk in 28. Ufinchas ben Elazar ben Aron omed lefanav bayamim ahem lemor. Ha'osif od latzeit lamilchama im bnei Binyamin achi im echdal. Vayomer Adonai alu ki machal etenenu v'yadecha. What appears here that we didn't see in the first two approaches? What appears here? Number one, it says clearly that the Aron Brit Elokim is there. It wasn't mentioned before. Why? Maybe they're more connected. Number two, we're told who is the acting Kohen Gadol. What's his name? The grandson of Aaron. Was that mentioned formally? No, it wasn't. Was Pinchas asked? Probably. But there was a lack of Shekhinah, lack of divine presence. Now Am Yisrael is going through a process of tshuva. And you know what? The Urim v'Tumim, okay? The parchment with God's name, 72-letter God's name, inside the fold of the breastplate, it's not a matter of technique. It's not a technical matter. We plug in a question, we get an answer. They've been getting answers, but not the real answer, because they haven't been asking the right way. And they're not asking out of tshuva. Here we see that now they want to prepare themselves better. They want to bring the Shekhinah here. And now they ask the proper way. What they didn't ask the first two times, as the Talmud explains in Masechet Yoma. Now they ask, should we really go to war or not? Should we really go to war or not?
You didn't ask that the second time though?
Should we further? They were already, the problem there was the forces were already there. Should we go through this? Then he asked, is it right to go to war now? Here they're asking, ha'ud latzeit lemilchama. So we see here, the response is very clear. What is the response through the high priest? 5 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alu, go up. Ki machar etnenu biyadecha. In other words, there's like a prophecy here. Through the Kohen Gadol, there's a prophecy here that the war that will happen tomorrow, you will be successful. Okay? In other words, there's the establishment here that the war that you're going to do, you're going to succeed. Now maybe they're asking the right time. So, my dear friends, let's try to sum this up. Until now, the tribes of Israel came together, united themselves. However, the Shekhinah was not united with them. They didn't ask the right way. Maybe also they didn't present the matter in a proper way to the tribe of Binyamin. But we still have to ask ourselves, what's going on with Binyamin? Isn't Binyamin a place of divine presence? Isn't Binyamin what's stated about Binyamin by Moshe Rabbeinu before his death? LeBinyamin Amar, Yedid Hashem. Binyamin is the friend of God. Yishkon levetach alav. He will dwell on him with certainty. The truth is, the essence of Binyamin is that God, what does it say? Bein ktefav shachem. What are ktefayim? Shoulders. God dwells amidst the shoulders of Binyamin, as it says that literally in the Chumash. But we're seeing activity, behavior, morals that don't show that God's Shekhinah is with Binyamin. Maybe that's the lesson that we're about to see in war number 3. Binyamin's going to fall. Binyamin's going to fall. And you know what? Maybe they deserve, or God will allow them to fall. Because if the Shekhinah has been in Binyamin, they would probably make peace. Leave us alone. We'll take to court. We don't see any prosecuting of these culprits. We don't see doing judgment to them whatsoever. We're seeing the absence of Shekhinah, the absence of morals and values in the tribe of Binyamin. Now, have you ever noticed, have you met any Jews in your life? Have you met any stubborn Jews? Oh, you've met a few. Don't tell me all your stories, okay? Jews are Am Keshe Oref. There's an expression that we are, what is it called? A stiff-necked nation, okay? We're a what? A stiff-necked people. Say that 3 times. It's a tongue twister. Let me see.
Stiff-necked people, stiff-necked people, stiff-necked people.
Tell you passed. You passed.
I've said it enough times. So.
Have you? Now, I want you to understand, with all the smiles here at the table about the Jews being stubborn, the Maharal of Prague, in one of his great works, I think it's Tiferet Yisrael, explains that this quality can be used for good things as well, being stubborn. For instance, I think Rav Beryl Wein, one of the great historians in our generation, who left his Manhattan, Lincoln Square Synagogue, was that the place where he was the Rav of in Manhattan, and made Aliyah, many people met with him. He's the rabbi of the presidential synagogue in Rehavia, Bekiras Nasi. He's a great historian, and he's published a lot. He writes about this quality, which really goes after what the Maharal of Prague is writing, especially regarding the period of time of the Greek-Syrian army, the miracle of Hanukkah. Okay? When the Greeks wanted to go down to Africa and conquer Africa as well, they knew that the cradle that connects civilization of Africa to Asia is the land of Israel. And therefore they traveled here, not with intention of causing any problems, but making a pit stop in the land of Israel. And there they meet up with the entity of the Jewish people, where they hold that there's something above the human intellect. That's called the divine intellect. The Torah is the expression of the divine intellect. And they thought that the pursuit of truth, the pursuit of the Greek philosophy, is the pinnacle of world society. The thinkers of the Greek philosophical thinkers are the highest level thinkers. And here they're meeting up as they're making a pit stop in the Middle East. The Jewish people are saying, no, we have something above human intellect. And that's called the divine intellect. And here's this book of life, the Torah. They could not stomach that idea. They could not accept that idea, which led eventually to Greek decrees on Jewish life and not performing major things of mitzvot that represent the Torah, like Brit Milah, Kiddush HaChodesh, and more. And what happened to the Jewish people in that generation? Many assimilated, called Hellenization. Okay? What happened? Jews, Rabbi Berelwein writes, it's also very true in Europe. Jews will often show the Gentiles, I'll be a better Greek than you are. I'll show you what it means to be a good goy, what it means to be a Greek, right? And so many, do you know what they did? You know, Greeks promoted nudity, walking around immodestly, and Jews were afraid or embarrassed of their Brit Milah. What did they do? They went through reverse surgery. It was called like I know it was plastic surgery in those days, but they went through what?
I don't imagine it was.
I don't think it was. They went through surgery in order to reverse the circumcision that they did. They wanted to be like everyone else. They wanted to show the Greeks, we'll be better Greeks than even you are. Then, the next stage, when more and more are assimilating, he writes the following, Rav Berelwein. When the Jews have their backs to the wall and they're pressured, and help me back. There you go. I like that. We practiced it twice before you walked in almost. Thank you very much. When the Jews, when their backs were to the wall, and there was more pressure for more assimilation, then the Jew says, you're not going to tell me not to be Jewish. The most assimilated, reformed Jews started becoming stronger. They were the ones that helped lead the rebellion even to go up against the Greek-Syrian army. In other words, what happens is that when the Jews are under pressure, we are a stiff-necked nation, or people, thank you, STP, right? SNP. Oh, you know what I mean. We are, he's laughing at my, stiff-necked people, SNP. Thank you. It takes me a little while to do it. So the Jewish people's quality of being stubborn has a positive side, the Maharal of Prague. It's not easy for us to assimilate. Sometimes when there's pressure on us, we can reverse that pressure and use it as positive fuel to want to connect, to research our sources, our roots. Who are we? What are we really about? And that happened in that Greek Hellenistic period. There was a revival eventually, which led to a rebellion where the few against the many, the weak against the strong, were able to win the war. This, I want to say, I understand from my rabbis, Rav Elimali and Rav Kashtiel, regarding Binyamin. Binyamin are not willing to accept, force the words of the tribes and say, you must hand them over. They're going to use it in a reverse way. You're not going to tell us what to do. And they're doing something which is against their integrity. They're doing something which is irrational. To fight a war of 26,000 versus 400,000 is anti-logical. There's no sense to doing so. Yet, right now, Binyamin is experiencing a time of the lack of Shekhinah, a lack of closeness to God. And when you have a lack of closeness to God, there's no political vacuum. There's no value vacuum. Their values are valueless, and they use their stubbornness to go up against all the tribes. That's what we're seeing here. And therefore, it's a very irrational war. A very irrational war.
Could it be that they didn't win the first two wars because they were more worthy, but just the rest of Israel was not?
We mentioned this in the middle of last week. Chazal say the following. You don't care about me, God says, as the Midrash says. You only care about yourselves, meaning you are prosecuting the tribe of Binyamin for this atrocity. What happens? You're allowing Pesel Micha, idolatry, next to Shiloh for decades and for hundreds of years. Now you're trying to show respect of God. Where's your respect of God? You're not demanding the respect of God. You're allowing idolatry to happen. There's no greater severe violation than avodah zara. That's why the Midrash says God allows this turmoil, this balagan to happen with so many casualties, unfortunately, because take the trouble out of your own eye first before you prosecute others. You should be wrapping up things. What happens? Pasuk 29 and on. And I'm going to quiz you. Can you draw a similarity to this war to another war? Let's keep on reading 29. Vayasam Yisrael Orvim Ela Giva Saviv. Israel decides now in collision number 3 to make what's called a unit. They're dispatching a unit of ambushers. Is that the right word? No. Orvim. Is that the word? Yeah. People that are sitting in ambush. You know what it means? People hiding out in a certain area where the enemy doesn't see them. And then when the time is right, they'll come out of hiding and then attack. Vayalu b'nei Yisrael b'nei Binyamin bayom hashlishi. The third day is happening. Vayarchu el hagiva kefam befam. And here we see now in verses 31 and 32, Vayitzu b'nei Binyamin lekratam. B'nei Binyamin attacks. Honteku min ha'ir. They have dispatched themselves out of the city. The city right now could be defenseless. Vayachelu lakot me'am chalalim kefam befam b'mesilot asher achat ola Beitel. Here we see that the beginning of clash number 3, they begin to knock out fellow Jews. Unfortunately, it's very painful to say this, just like they did in the 2 previous wars, to Givat Basadeh. But this is where, in the field outside the city. Kishloshim ish b'Yisrael. Clash number 1 of war number 3. We open up with a victory again on the side of Binyamin. And what are they thinking? That we're going to win this war like they did before? 32. Their spirit is raised. Why? Because they see that the Israelites are being hit again, just like the first wars. And what is Bnei Israel thinking? Amru, nanusa. Let's flee. Let's go as far away. What is their plan, the strategy? Let's bring their forces after us. They're gonna pursue us. We're gonna be the ones pursued. And where are we taking them? As far away as possible from the city. Obviously, their plan is
Counterattack.
not a counterattack, but the ambush party that's hiding right now. Once the forces of Binyamin are further away from the city, they can what? Reveal themselves and go into the city, which is probably unprotected by then, or too late for the pursuers to get them. What does this remind you? What type of war? Do you remember?
Yeshua, the city of Ai.
The city of Ha'ai. Very good. North of Beit El, we lost the first war, as we learned in the book of Yeshua, in the town called Ha'ai. Where is Ha'ai mentioned in the Chumash?
No, next to Hush.
In the Chumash. Your grandfather, Avram Avinu. When he arrived to Shechem and he started traveling, what does it state? You remember? What does it state?
He went
From Elon Moreh, next to Shechem, he traveled to second place? To the area of Beit El. It says, Beit El miyam ve'ha'ai mikedem. Beit El is to the west, is to the Beit El miyam ve'ai mikedem. Beit El to the west, and Ai east. That's where Avram Avinu arrives on his second trip after he arrives the first time. And there and so when it comes to the time of Yeshua, after the war against, you said Yericho, the war number 1. We lost war number 2. Why did we lose war number 2 in Hai?
Because
Didn't God want the favor, the victory of the Jewish people? Why in the second war of Yoshua ben Nun, the chief of staff of the Israeli army, why did we lose that war against Ai? What swear, neder, vow, did Yoshua make regarding taking of booty, spoil?
That nobody of the people will take something out
No one is allowed to take benefit from the first war of Israel in the city of Jericho, in Yericho. Why not?
There is only one man who takes it.
Why? Whatever is first in Judaism is holy, special, unique. So they made like a cherem. Anyone that would be taking advantage of it would be like excommunicated. And really a member secretly of the tribe of Yehuda, called Achan.
I looked it up.
Achan took the spoils, the booty, and because of that violation, Israel lost war number 2 against Ai, and then the nation starts doing tshuva. We find out exactly who violated this vow, this oath. He was put to death, and then we went to go to war number 2, and the Tanakh is very descriptive of how we set up, how we dispatched these forces that are in ambushing against the city of Hai, and then we win the war. It seems that there's a lot to draw similarity between this war and that war as well. Pasuk Lamed Gimel, V'chol ish Yisrael kamu mimkomo. Here it is. Vayarchu beval tamar ve'orev Yisrael megiach mimkomo mimarei gava. I don't know exactly the places where they are, but it's clear right now that the ambush party gets up and they're attacking. Verse 34. Vayavo mineged legiva 10,000 ish bechor mikol Yisrael va'milchama kaveda. Okay, how many forces? 10,000 forces are apparently not just any forces. Ish bechor. Bechor are the chosen, the elite unit, the sayeret. How do you say sayeret in English? Special forces are now dispatched. These are the ones that are dispatched. It's a heavy war. There are casualties. What they don't know, Israel, is that they're fighting up against a lost cause. And now God interferes. Pasuk Lamed Hey. Vayigof Hashem et Binyamin mefnei Yisrael. Vayishchitu b'nei Yisrael b'Binyamin b'yemu 25,100 ish. Kol eila sholef charav. The best of forces, 25,000 plus another 100, are wiped out. Can you imagine? This is one of the smallest of tribes. Binyamin is not known to be a large tribe. And now the Tanakh gets into the details of this matter. Vayiru b'nei Binyamin ki nigafu, vayitnu ish Yisrael makom leBinyamin, ki vatchu el ha'orev asher samu el hagiva, v'orev eichishu. They sprinted, they ran really fast. Vayifshetu el hagiva, and they now open up fire on the town of Giva. Vayimshocha ha'orev vayachid kol ha'ir lefi charav. The ambush party, it destroys basically the city with their swords. And this, of course, is a terrible time. What do? Smoke signals. Pasuk Lamed Chet, V'moed haya leish Yisrael im ha'orev, cherev la'alotam masat ha'ashan min ha'ir. If you're part of Bnei Yisrael, kilometers away, and all of a sudden you see above the town of Giva, smoke coming up. And you know it's not sanitation day where they burn the garbage, right? Rather, apparently, there was a penetration by the tribes of Israel into the city of Giva, and they put parts of the city to blaze. What will that do to the other forces of Israel? Of Binyamin, rather? It'll cause them to surrender. But psychologically, mentally, what does it cause? What? Low morale. They're terrified. Our families are being killed. Our fellow soldiers are being wiped out. And that's exactly what happens. Here, now, in the rest of the verses until the end of the chapter, we have what's called the style of klal and prat. Until now, the Tanakh told us in general terms, and now from 39 for the next 10 verses or so, we have the details, the description of the killing of 25,000 soldiers of Binyamin by way of the armies of Israel, especially the ones that are the Orev. Gentlemen, all together, we, as you see in the next upcoming psukim, in 3 different clashes, 25,000 soldiers are killed. What is left over? Let's go to the end of the chapter. Pasuk Mem Zayin, verse 47. Vayifnu, vayanusu midbara, el sela rimon, shesh meot ish, vayishvu besela rimon, arba'a chodeshim. The wars ended. 4 months, Jews of Binyamin, a sum total only, how many? 600, have drifted towards the desert, means going east or west? Going east, the Judean desert. Benjamin is over Jericho, so Benjamin is in the mountain area, and the more you drift east, you're losing altitude going down to Jericho in the Jordan Valley. And my dear friends, that's it. Inside the tribes of the tribe of Benjamin, in all the towns left over, only 600 men are alive. Everyone has been wiped out. And that's how the new chapter begins. Kaf Aleph, chapter 21. Would you close the microphone, please? Thank you. V'ish Yisrael nishba b'mitzpah lemor. Remember, mitzpah is a gathering place, a very important gathering place. There they take an oath. Ish mimenu lo yitain vito levinyamin liisha. What do they disallow? No intermarriage. No one should give their daughters to marry the tribe of Binyamin. In other words, let's keep on punishing them, that they do not multiply in number. And this becomes a very severe thing. They want to punish them even more and more. And basically, we'll see tomorrow, God willing, how they do it, amidst where do they do it, and let's see what happens, what type of prayer they do, and we'll continue with this tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem.